Hello, everybody. Jonathan here from Vancouver Fit Body Bootcamp, and I hope you are doing absolutely amazing today. It is Wednesday, which means it is the weekly nutrition teaching that I do every single week at 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. Apparently this is 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. every Wednesday. And so today, what we're talking about is the science of cravings. And so we're going to dive into a deep aspect of science, the different hormones involved, the different neurotransmitters involved, because a lot of the time when we understand what is going on when it comes to cravings, then we're better able to make better decisions because we understand how cravings are actually working in the body. And so once we understand that, then it's easier to make better decisions for our health and our nutrition moving forward. And so that's exactly what we're going to cover today. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Number one question, have you ever even really thought about what cravings are? And I mean, that's the first question that we need to think about is what are cravings and where do they even come from? So in kind of technical terms a little bit, cravings are a series of chemical reactions in the body that lead us to a heightened desire for a specific substance. And so in our reality and in simple terms, basically, it's a series of chemical reactions that basically increase our desire to eat a particular food. And so that's kind of what we know cravings to be. And so there's two parts that we're going to talk about today. Number one is cravings, and the other is hunger, because they're actually two separate things. So we're going to address both of those today. And it all starts, again, like I talked about, this can be the science of cravings. So it all starts at the brain, and particularly with respect to the brain at the hypothalamus. And so the hypothalamus is essentially known as like the master gland in the body, the master regulator of the endocrine system, which is essentially controls all the hormone, the majority of the hormones in the body that are produced and move around the body. The hypothalamus also helps to regulate your digestion, your metabolism, your fight or flight system, and really a whole lot more than that. And essentially, you can think about the hypothalamus as it's like the interface, like the connection between your endocrine system, which is like your hormonal system, and your nervous system. And so it connects the two, and it basically interprets the messages from the brain and the nervous system to say, okay, now I need to create more of this hormone and send that out into the body to be able to do its job. So that's kind of what it does. Within the hypothalamus, there's actually something called the appetite regulating network, or you can refer to it as the ARN. And that essentially consists of distinct circuitries in the hypothalamus that essentially propagate and relay your signals related to hunger drive. And so it is subject to essentially modulation and influence of both internal and external messages, or excitatory and inhibitory messages. And so to basically dumb that down and make it really, really simple, essentially your appetite regulating network is essentially upregulated, turned on, or downregulated, depressed by external things in your environment, but also by internal things in the environment, which would be the things that you put in your body, so the things that you eat and drink. So to kind of understand all of this, we have to be aware of certain kind of significant hormones and neurotransmitters that are involved in the process. And again, once we learn what these are, it will make it easier to handle our cravings in the future, knowing what the experience of cravings actually is in our body. So number one, starting off with hormones. We're going to focus on two main hormones today, and that is going to be number one, leptin, and number two, ghrelin. And so if you've kind of around the food industry a little bit, you know exactly what these are. They're kind of the most common ones that are talked about when it comes to feeling satisfied or hunger hormones. So number one, leptin. Leptin is actually produced by your body's adipose tissue, by your fat. That is where it's produced. And the fat on your body, playing off that last point. Leptin is essentially kind of like your glorified satiety hormone, meaning that when your leptin levels are in check, you feel satisfied, you don't feel the need to be able to eat more, you're in a good space of balance, essentially, within the food in your body and the energy in your body. Leptin is kind of like a regulator to tell your body when you've had enough. When leptin's functioning well, you have very little cravings because of that satiety factor and you feel satisfied. Now we have the other end of the spectrum, which is ghrelin. Ghrelin is kind of like your body's glorified hunger hormone. So this is secreted primarily in your stomach and telling your body basically, hey, we need some nutrients and we need some building blocks so that the body can do what it's supposed to do. And then both leptin and ghrelin communicate with that ARN, that appetite regulating network, on a regular basis all throughout the day. So they're really, really important hormones when it comes to hunger and our cravings. And you can kind of think about that appetite regulating network as kind of like your body's energy regulating system. It focuses on kind of where your body's at in terms of energy levels. And if it's lacking, it's like, hey, I need some more. So let's turn up ghrelin, let's turn up our hunger hormone, and let's bring in some more food. If there's an imbalance of some kind, then that also starts to fire off. And that's essentially what gets our body to go through some of these cravings and these hunger pangs, as you might call them as well. So that's hormones. That's our two main ones. Now let's talk about neurotransmitters. One of the ones involved in cravings is dopamine. And we've heard that one before. Most people have heard that one before. That is essentially like your big rewards neurotransmitter. So when you complete something, when you accomplish something, you get this big dose of dopamine released in your body and you feel really, really good. When you take drugs, typically that is releasing a big amount of dopamine in your system, and again, you feel good. Dopamine is actually more, actually that drug one was as good of an example. Dopamine is kind of like your seeking hormone, your neurotransmitter. So it drives you to take action to be able to achieve a particular result. And it's really, really important for that, because if you have a goal, say for example, weight loss, if you have a goal, dopamine is going to be one of the things that gets released that gets you to act to work on achieving that goal. So really, really important. Then we have serotonin, which is more kind of what's known as like the feel-good hormone. So it's a chemical that's largely responsible for maintaining mood and balance in your body, often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter. And a lot of antidepressant drugs, their focus is actually on the increased uptake of serotonin in your body. So you take an antidepressant, not all of them, but a lot of them are focused on trying to increase your production of serotonin or increase your actual absorption and uptake of the serotonin. So again, that you feel better. And just like overall better mood and overall just feeling happier in general. Now here's one of the really cool things, is upwards of 80 to 90% of the serotonin that is produced in your body is actually produced in your gut, in your GI tract, in your digestive system, in your colon. And so what that means is that the environment within your GI tract is like super, super important, because that affects the production and the function of serotonin in your body. And so if we're bringing in the wrong foods, then we don't have the right environment in our gut to then be able to produce the serotonin that then makes us feel better and happier on a day-to-day basis. And so this is why it's really important, not just in terms of weight loss to choose the right foods, but in terms of just overall feeling better and feeling good about yourself and about everything that's going on right now in the world. It is way easier to be depressed and to be anxious and worried and in fear when we are not eating the right foods. And even though this type of situation that we're in creates more stress, which pulls us to want to have more of that processed food, we have to be really careful, because that processed food then puts us into a vicious cycle of not feeling very good, not feeling very energetic, and being on a downward trend. And so being really aware that our gut and the food that we bring in, really our gut is like our second brain, and it's so, so, so important. And it sends so many signals to our brain to tell us what we need to do, and to what hormones to release and what processes to carry out in the body. It's also thought that serotonin can influence our mood, our social behavior, our appetite, our cravings, our digestion, our sleep, our memory, and also our sexual desire and function. All right. So again, serotonin is a very, very important neurotransmitter in the body. And so again, these are a couple of really important hormones, a couple of really important neurotransmitters that are involved in cravings. And essentially, why am I sharing these? Well, again, we need to start to understand how these processes are working in the body so that we then have greater control over our actions in response to what they are doing. All right. So question for you. When you have when you have cravings, where are they experienced? So are they experiencing a specific area of your body? Where is that? If you have a craving, maybe it's for chocolate. Maybe if we're not so strong on the health perspective, maybe it's we have a craving for a cigarette. Maybe it's we have a craving for human connection, right? During this time, quarantine, that's a lot of that, or human contact, especially. And so just understand that hunger and cravings are actually two very different things. They can feel very similar, especially when we're in reference to food, like a craving for a food. They can seem very similar, but they are actually very different things in the body. Hunger is completely involved with the stomach, all right? And in our society, food, we're surrounded by it everywhere. And very few of us have really experienced true hunger. To be honest, right? Most of us have never been in a situation where we've been in a famine type of situation, or we're literally feeding off of like a small little bit of vegetables or potatoes or rice or something for a week or 2 weeks or longer. Most of us have never experienced true hunger. But just know that hunger comes from the stomach, and it's not a mental thing. That's where cravings are. And cravings, like I said, yeah, they're experienced completely in the brain. Hunger will compel you to eat. Cravings hit your mind with a thought, and whether you choose to fulfill that is totally up to you. But habits and a few other things kind of play into us giving into those cravings a lot more. And it's kind of like cravings hit your mind of like, oh, you see, you get those little coupons in the mail all the time. Two pizzas for $9.99. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's get that. Like something like that. A picture comes up in your mind of what that would be like, and you like pizza, and like then that craving builds up, and then you react on that, right? Maybe it's a craving for the cookie or the chocolate or whatever your thing is, and that's a thought that comes up. It's not actually a hunger craving that is happening. So being really aware of that distinction. That hunger is in the stomach, craving is in the mind, right? All right. So cravings are, I guess this question: are cravings normal, and are they a bad thing? All right. What do you think? Are cravings normal, and are they a bad thing? 100% cravings are absolutely normal. Totally normal thing. We've been evolutionary wise, we have cravings to go out and seek certain types of food in the environment to be able to fulfill our nutrient needs that we need. And basic cravings are, they're like a drive from our body to meet an imbalance. We have cravings because there's something missing typically within our nutrition that we need to fulfill. Cravings are a response and a training of your body system. So whether we indulge in a craving or not, it's not bad. What we want to do is learn how to better interpret the signals and then our response to them. And that's what's really important. Cravings are also a matter of habit. And so your stomach can actually be trained to feel hungry in a cyclical pattern. Like if you're hungry every 3 hours, that's usually more to your habits of eating every 3 hours that you've created over months or over years than you actually necessarily being hungry at that point in time. And so be really aware of that so much of our hunger that we feel has actually just been created by the habits that we've had over our life, again, over the last months or the last years, 20, 50 years maybe, and being aware of, again, where those hunger and what we think are hunger cravings are coming from. Now, the other aspect of that also with habits is if you eat when you're stressed or you eat at a certain time of night, that behavior becomes more and more a part of your lifestyle. And that actually creates, which is crazy, creates a biochemical feedback loop in your brain and in your body that's going to crave food when you are stressed, when you're angry, when you are sad, or at particular times of day when you've been doing that on a regular basis. And again, all these things are happening even if you are not actually hungry, right? Craving, hunger, separate things. And so all these things can be happening because of the habits that we've created over time that then build us into this routine, and then our biochemical processes start to match that. And then we continue that without even thinking about it anymore. So one of the things I want to do is be aware that if we're tying an eating behavior to certain things, that will create that craving, and we need to start to be aware of that and create our awareness. Again, if we're, again, this is a great time to be aware of this because quarantine, social distancing, losing jobs, all this kind of stuff has created a lot of stress for us. And so is this stress causing us to go to the fridge more? Is this stress or this, maybe we just lost our job and we got a lot of anxiety? Well, we know that a lot of certain foods release this rush of dopamine, right? That like need to feel better, that need to take action to get that end result. And that maybe going to the freezer and eating that pint of ice cream is going to make us feel better in that moment. And so we need to step back and be aware of what are the triggers that cause us to go and indulge in those things. And so that's really important. Again, we need to step back and just create that awareness before we can actually do things differently, because we need to be aware of the habits that are not serving us, and then what can we implement in our lives to minimize those negative triggers or take them away completely potentially, so that we can start making better decisions. So this is a 2-part series. I'm going to dive into a couple of 4 different key areas. I may add more by the time we get to next week that I'm going to dive into and teach on in terms of what are some of the things that create some of these cravings in our body and in our mind, and create some of these like abnormal cravings that seem kind of out of the ordinary, and what they are, what's coming from them, what's the background behind them, and then diving, and potentially some of them, what are the imbalances that are actually happening in the body that is causing the craving. And so that's going to be what I'm talking about over these next 2. So today, number 1, key area that we're going to touch on is nutrition. All right. Nutrition and your craving. This is the biggest one. All right. We have a primal drive in our body that we need to fulfill specific needs and nutritional needs. And the hardest part about this is that sometimes it's like, oh, I really want that cookie. And we're fighting that. And our body knows, it has a memory of all the foods that we've taken in. And it remembers and it knows what's in food that we're trying to get. So a lot of the times we are trying to go after a particular food to get something out of it that it thinks our body will get. And so the toughest part with that is sometimes if we're trying to go on a health journey or we're going on a diet, I hate the word diet, if we're going on a new way of eating and we get a big craving, we are taking willpower and we're trying to pit it against biology. We're trying to pit it against our body's needs. And our willpower is like, no, I can't have that, I can't have that, I can't have that. And eventually the biology takes over and says, I'm going to have that. But again, there's a lot of things that are behind that. And so I want to not go totally against willpower. That's an aspect of it. But we need to get a little bit more understanding of kind of what's going on here. So with nutrition, a lot of our cravings are actually started by a nutrient deficiency. So for example, your body might be in a severe need of a bioavailable form of calcium. And note that I said bioavailable. Really, really important. There's actually numerous forms of all the different nutrients that we are aware of. The problem is typical kind of industry teaching has told us that calcium, there's just one calcium. And that's it. And we can get that from any source as long as we get calcium. But unfortunately, there's actually different forms and different types of calcium. And come from different sources. They have different absorbability in the body. We have different utilization of those different forms of calcium. Different forms of calcium have different interactions with other enzymes and nutrients in the body that will create different end results. So it's really important to understand that aspect, that there are different forms of all the different nutrients, and are we getting those, the ones that we need? All that we've seen is you look at the back of a food label and you look at the nutrition label, it says calcium, you're getting 12% of your daily recommended intake, but it may not even be something that we actually absorb despite it being calcium. And so we need to just, again, expand that knowledge of what is happening here. Your body, again, is going to do what it's been programmed to do over thousands of years, and that is to compel you to get certain food items into your system to fulfill its nutritional needs and carry out the processes that it needs. Whether that is for calcium, to rebuild bone tissue, to clot your blood, to have your muscles contract, to allow nerve impulses to move through your body. Calcium is used for all those, by the way. And unfortunately, for your body to fulfill its needs, it will sometimes lead to underlying cravings that you don't know what are there, and potentially overeating. Your body will potentially overeat to try and fulfill these needs, And here is something that like I really, really want to get across today. Super, super important, no matter where you are at in your journey with food and health, is that chronic nutritional deficiency leads to chronic overeating. All right, let me say it again. Chronic nutrient deficiency leads to chronic overeating. Why? Because your body is pulled to want to continue to bring those nutrients to fill its needs. And there are multiple nutrients that your body cannot make on its own. And so it is going to tell your body to eat until it fulfills those needs. And if we're eating the wrong types of food, then it is so easy to overeat. If we're going to fast food on a regular basis, for example, the nutritional density of that food is minimal. And so it is so easy to overeat on those foods to try and fulfill our nutritional needs because we're not getting the nutritional needs from that food. And so if you listen to my talk from last week, I talked about hyperpalatable foods, foods that really kind of kick up our brain sensors and hormones and things like that. They taste really good. On average, it's found that if you have a lot more processed foods in your diet, you eat on average 500 calories more per day just for the fact of eating more high processed foods because they're hyper palatable and they don't fill us up because they're not fulfilling our nutritional gaps and needs in our body. So here's a really, really great study to kind of emphasize this. So a study came out of the International Journal of Obesity, and you can basically call it the eggs versus the bagel study. And what they did is they basically took two groups of people that were healthy, but they were overweight or obese. So otherwise healthy, but overweight in the overweight or obese category. And they essentially assigned one group to having a breakfast that had eggs and one group that their breakfast was a bagel. So it was that breakfast combined with a restricted caloric intake. And after 8 weeks, right, just 8 weeks, 2 months, this is what they found. This is the results of it. The egg breakfast group, so both groups had caloric restriction, just one group had the eggs for breakfast, one group had the bagel for breakfast. The egg breakfast group showed a 61% greater reduction in the body mass index, which is your height to weight ratio, a 65% greater weight loss compared to the other group, a 34% greater reduction in waist circumference, and a 16% greater reduction in body fat compared to the bagel group. What? Okay, massive results. So how and why is that happening? Well, number one is you are actually satisfying some of the basic nutritional needs that your body has with the eggs. And if you choose high quality, free range eggs that are higher omegas and things like that, you're also going to be getting an even greater fulfillment of your nutritional needs for the day. And so when you start your day with a higher quality fat, a higher quality protein, you are going to be in a significantly better position for optimal health and weight loss, if that is your goal, moving forward for the rest of the day. Bagels not only don't have the nutrients that the eggs do, but they also have a lot of anti-nutrients that will cause your body to lose more nutrients than it will actually gain from it. And that is actually the case with the majority of processed foods, not just a bagel, for example, but the majority of processed foods will actually have anti-nutrients that will work against you in the terms of you being able to fulfill your needs, and you're going to lose more nutrients than you will actually gain. Here's the other thing with that is, as a result of all that, leptin does not get activated to the same level because you're not fulfilling all your specific needs. And so leptin was the satisfaction hormone. So you don't get leptin released at the same level, so you are not satisfied. So then ghrelin, the opposite end, increases, so then you become more hungry, and then you end up eating more later on in the day. So really, really amazing, really cool, something that we can all implement right away. That's a big takeaway for you all right now. Start your day with a high quality protein and or fat over carbohydrates, and you will be off to the races in terms of significantly better day and better health, and reduce cravings for the rest of the day as well. All right, other aspect, right? To lose weight, it has been shown that we do need to be on a restricted caloric plan. We do need to reduce our calories. But most people, when they are trying to lose weight, they just eat less of what they are already eating. And what they are already eating has brought them into a space where they don't feel comfortable where they are, and they feel like they need to lose weight. So that is a sign that your food choices have not been the strongest that they need to be. If you're going to follow a calorically restricted plan, it is going to be way harder, significantly harder, if you are not giving your body the nutrients that it needs to function optimally. Because with the egg and bagel, for example, you didn't start the day with, if you had the bagel, you didn't start your day with the nutrients that your body needs to kind of get started and get moving and function at optimal levels. So now you are going to be more hungry later in the day, and you're going to be thinking more about what to eat next rather than actually being present in your day and carrying out, connecting with friends and family or your work or things like that. And so it really, it's so, so important. And when you don't get what your body wants, it will stimulate more cravings for the rest of the day. And it's unfortunate that, a lot of people will get away with being able to eat cake for breakfast. And who eats cake for breakfast? To be honest, the majority of the population. And let me break it down and lay it out like this. In cake, what are the ingredients? I see flour, I see butter, lard, fat of some kind, I see sugar, I see, what else is in there? Maybe eggs, baking powder, baking soda. Those are the exact same ingredients in your muffins, in your scones, in your bagels, in every baked good, breads. Like the majority of people are basically eating cake for breakfast because of the ingredients that make them up. And so being aware of these ingredients that make up these foods that we're having on a regular basis. Some people can get away with that in terms of weight, but I can absolutely guarantee you health-wise that their insides and their health is not nearly as optimal or function optimal levels as their body would want it to be. Even if consciously they think they're totally fine, I can tell you the inside of the body is not functioning as well as they could be, and they would have even more energy if they chose better options in terms of food. All right, there's something else really, really important to talk about here too. And it's a concept that kind of happens behind all of this when we are choosing more of these processed foods. And there's something called the vanishing calorie density. And so this really relates and is attributed to, there's these specific foods that scientists have created, not real foods, that essentially have the ability to get you to eat a lot of it, of whatever it is that you're eating. And there's things, food scientists is a real job, that their whole job is to be able to figure out how to make a bigger taste explosion, how to make that taste go away faster in your mouth, so then you need the next bite and you eat more of it. And that is their sole job and their sole responsibility. All right? These foods are essentially foods that, quote unquote, rapidly vanish or melt in your mouth, that trick your brain into thinking that you are not eating as much as what you actually are. And take chips of literally any kind. High salt, high fat, flavor explosion. It melts in your mouth after 2 chews, and all of a sudden that flavor is gone, and you need the next chip to be able to satisfy that flavor explosion again. And because of that melting component that food does, our brain doesn't understand how much we are actually taking in. So it is so, so easy to be able to overeat. And chips are the #1 snack across North America. #1 snack. And so the number of people that are going to that and having this massive increase of calories that your brain doesn't think is going on, but is actually going on because of this vanishing calorie density science. All right? And that goes into candy and chocolate bars, your breads, your cereals, the muffins, the scones, the baked goods that I talked about before already, the cake. Those are all included within that. And they're all at different varying levels in terms of how much that vanishing calorie density is applied, but it absolutely applies to all of those. You can't say that a piece of cucumber, taking a big bite out of that, is the same as taking a bite out of a piece of bread, right? That bread disappears and vanishes very quickly, and the cucumber does not, right? So that's kind of what it's talking about. And these foods mess with your brain and make it both physically and chemically harder to control your health and your food decisions that you make that are advantageous to your health, because it's messed with the brain chemistry, and your brain doesn't think that you're having as much as what you're actually having. And this is exactly it's literally, the chip, All right, what slogan, what company has the slogan, bet you can't eat just one, right? We all know it. We've all heard that slogan, and that's Lay's chips. And to be honest, that's every single chip product out there. Bet you can't have just one because of what it's made out of and the science that has gone in to create the flavor and what it does in your body. The hardest part with all of this is that this is being marketed to our kids. So they are completely indoctrinated. They are having these at a young age. And then we are creating this addiction to them early. Like literally, I got a 16-month-old son right now, and they literally have Cheetos. Like these, or Puffies. They literally melt and disintegrate in your mouth. And they literally have ones that look exactly like Cheetos. They're just not as orange. And that's exactly what's happening. And we got to be aware of these foods that we are giving our kids, as well as the ones that, again, we're putting into our body. And so up next, one fact on that, when you combine the nutrient deficiency that you might be having because of the foods that you're intaking on a regular basis, combining that with the vanishing calorie density, these are like the ultimate tandem duo causing you massive cravings. And so just being aware of that, being careful of that. And so up next, what we're going to talk about are some solutions for these cravings and how to go about processing them and substitutions and what to do about them. But that is part 2. All right. So today was part 1. Hope you absolutely enjoyed that. I don't see any questions so far from anyone. So thank you for joining me. Part 2 will be coming on Wednesday next week. So we'll talk about the science of cravings so far. Next week, we're going to talk about the solutions of how to address those cravings very specifically when it comes to salty cravings, when it comes to sugar cravings, and when it comes to other types of cravings as well, and the things that you can integrate into your life that are both nutritional, but also lifestyle habits and things like that that we can do to really drastically decrease those cravings. All right, so if you have any questions, by all means, comment on this post. We'd love to see that. If there's things that you want to hear specifically on the next one, then I can address that, and we will go from there. Have an amazing day, everyone, and we'll talk to you all soon.